This morning we're going to continue our neck and shoulder series. Ever since my last class, I've been having a little bit of just restricted motion in my neck and just tightness in my shoulders. So today we're going to use a couple of tennis balls, a bolster or a pillow, and then a pair of blocks, which are just totally optional. They're nice to have. If you don't have them, totally okay. But we're just going to come down onto the floor for a second and just sit and connect with where we are in this moment. So however you'd like to come down to sit, feel free to set yourself up. I'm going to have my tea close by and just kind of get organized here. And then we're just going to kind of get the trigeminal nerve going with a little Eft tapping. This technique helps us reconnect with our bodies. So you're going to take your fingertips and you're just going to tap along the hairline. And if this feels good, or if this feels good, keep going. If it feels like it's activating anything in your shoulders or in your neck, go ahead and see if you can draw your chin back so that it's over your heart, and see if you can drop your shoulders away from your ears while you do this. It's a little bit of a concentration thing because a lot of times we want to lift our shoulders up towards our ears, but just tap along the hairline. And then we're going to come right along the temples. Just gentle taps out towards the ears, out towards the outer edge of the jaw. Come back up towards the forehead, tap right above the eyebrows and into the third eye, that space right between the eyebrows. And back out towards the temples. And down underneath the eyes. Just kind of letting the fingertips tap along the cheekbone. And then down to the outside edges of your jaw. If you'd like to just pause for a second and give yourself a nice little jaw massage. A lot of tension lives here. A lot of the connective tissue that goes into our necks and shoulders is in this space, can be bundled up. So just kind of notice, just kind of open and close the jaw, maybe go back to the tapping. And as you tap, you may notice that things start to move in your body. You may want to swallow more, you may want to yawn, just go with it. And then go ahead and take the tapping above the upper lip, right under your nose, out towards the soft spots of your cheeks, right below your cheekbones. And then down underneath the lower lip. And as I move down the body, I'm starting to slow down my tapping just a little bit. If that feels good to you, do that. But make sure that you're keeping those shoulders down and away from your ears as you're tapping. See if you can do this while releasing tension in your shoulders as well. And then we're just going to stop for a second and take our peace fingers and run them down from beneath our ears down along our necks to the top of our collarbone. So these little muscles here, while we're also getting a nice little lymphatic drainage massage, are called scalenes. They are the little muscles that lift and hold our head up. And those muscles, especially when we're sitting on the computer, when we're sitting on our phones, we tend to jut our chins forward. So those muscles can get really, really overstretched and over tight at the same time. So just give yourself a couple of those nice dragging motions down the neck towards the collarbone. And then what I'd like you to do is go ahead and make little buds with your fingers. So you're just kind of almost like making duck mouths with your hands if you were doing shadow puppets. And you're going to just tap right underneath the collarbones. I've been doing this a lot lately. Mostly because it feels like it really opens up my heart and my chest. I'll actually just sit, and if, I'm sitting in traffic or I'm reading an email that's stressful or something, I'll just go to this and be like, oh, okay, I feel like I can breathe. You may notice that you want to clear your throat, just kind of loosening things up in the chest. These points correspond to the lung meridian. If you like, you can take your elbows out towards the side. If that's too much for your shoulders and your neck, you can always keep your elbows dropped. And then just for a second, tap just in the middle, right on that sternum, just up and down that sternum. And notice if you start to sigh. And you can go back to tapping along both sides of collarbone if this feels good, but just kind of be organic with it. Maybe close your eyes and notice where you want to tap. And then we're just going to make a loose fist and move down through the sternum and over out towards the outer right rib. If you'd like, you can take that left hand to the top of your head and just rest it on top. And we're just going to go along that outer right rib, up underneath the arm, up into the underarm. You have lots of lymph nodes and stuff underneath your arm. So as you go, you can just kind of tap around the breast tissue. And you can go both ways. You can go firm or soft, whatever feels good. And here, see if you can just press your head into your hand. So like move it back, press it back into your hand, and actively press your hand into your head. You may notice that your heart lifts when you do that. And then go ahead and just switch sides. So you're going to take your left hand to your head. Your right hand comes to the center of your chest and taps down the sternum and over towards the outer right ribs, up underneath the arm. See if you can remember to press that head back into that hand. And just tap. I really like this practice as something that kind of just disperses energy. It kind of just settles our nervous system. Feels good. Percussive tapping is really kind of a nice practice. And then go ahead and release. And we're just going to lean forward, take our hands down to the space between our low ribs and the top of our pelvis. And you're just going to tap at that back body. So these are where your kidneys live. Your adrenal gland is back here. So if you felt really stressed out or activated, this kind of massage can help kind of soothe some of that. And we'll just take a couple breaths here. If this is getting on your neck, you can always just lift the head and just take your hands behind the back, draw the elbows out. We'll actually revisit that in a second, but go ahead and take your hands to your thighs, let your head lift towards the sky. Once again, kind of do a little bit of that forward and back movement with the pelvis and find that nice long spine, hands to your thighs, and head reaches towards the sky, finding that neutral spine. And just notice what has changed, what has shifted, what maybe feels a little softer in your body. And then from here, we're going to go back to that spot where our hands were behind our backs. So you're going to take both palms and you're going to take the backs of your hands right into the small of your back, that curve of your back. And here, what I'd like you to do is instead of drawing your elbows back, we're going to let our elbows fall forward and see if we can find a nice long spine. Now, if you'd like to kind of feel a stretch across the front of the chest, across the pecs and shoulders, you can always bring those hands up a little higher so that your elbows are more bent. Or if it's too much, you can take your hands down behind your sacrum, behind your low back, and straighten your arms just a little bit. And here, just see if you can let gravity do a little work. So I'm going to go about midway and press the backs of my hands into my ribs. And take a deep breath into the fronts of my shoulders. And here I'm trying to keep my chest lifted, my chin lifted. I'm doing my best not to round forward because that's the movement that I've been doing and it has not worked for me and it's been uncomfortable. So just kind of sit tall. And then from here, we're going to add on a little bit. So you're going to draw the elbows back and then let them come back forward. We're not trying to push anything here. We're just moving the shoulders in the shoulder socket, moving them forward and back. And do 2 more of those with whatever breath works for you. And then while we're here, what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to turn sideways so you can see this, is you're actually going to turn your palms so that they come to your low back, but your fingertips are going to face towards the ceiling or the sky. So what I like to do is point my fingertips towards the sky like I'm pushing someone away in front of me, and then I'm going to draw my elbow back and just place it in the low back. So if I turn, you'll see I'm just placing my hands on my low back. And here, if you're sitting up high enough on that bolster or that block, this will help kind of open up those palms, those elbows, those wrists, that forearm. And draw your elbows back towards one another. See if you can kind of allow a little bit deeper of a curve into your low lumbar spine. Take a couple breaths. This may feel really intense. I'm working to get the heels of my hands down onto my pelvis. They may not necessarily touch. Mine don't right now. And then just exhale and release. And what I'd like you to do is turn your palms towards the sky. Let them rest on your thighs. And just notice any kind of sensation coming into your hands, your wrists, your shoulders. And then from here, we're just going to kind of come up to stand. It's a little strange transition, but this is going to help sort of start to lengthen the back of the neck and the shoulders. And if you have your bolster or your pillow, what I'd like you to do is just go ahead, pick it up, and you're going to place it across the tops of your thighs. So right at the sort of base of your pelvis, top of your thighs. And I like this bolster because it's nice and firm. There you can use pillows and stuff. They work well too. But this one gives me a little bit more of like a sort of extension over the bolster, which I like. So you're going to pull that bolster in towards your thighs, lift your ribs and lift your heart. And then on your exhale, just go ahead and fold over. And you can take your feet to as wide or as narrow as you like. And you're just going to fold over and do a little dangling. Let that head hang heavy. Let those shoulders roll towards your ears. Maybe if you'd like, you can grab opposite elbows and start to sway. But here, just think about allowing that crown of the head to move towards the earth. Just really allowing everything to kind of pour down. And we're just going to kind of spend a little bit of time here, just breathing, maybe rocking, maybe kind of swinging the arms out to the sides and then back in, kind of letting the body rock forward and back as we do that. It may feel a little weird. Just kind of close your eyes or soften your gaze and just allow this movement to kind of come into your body. For me, I really feel this into backs of my shoulders. My head doesn't feel so much like it's heavy. I feel like I'm restricted, but it is, I know, lengthening, so it feels kind of good. Kind of using gravity in the opposite direction to allow some space to come up into the upper thoracic spine, cervical spine. And just take two more of those nice little like swings, if you will, or if your hands are on your elbows, you can rock back and forth. And then come back to center. And we're just going to set that bolster down off to the side and come back down onto all fours. Now, if all fours is a lot for you, that's okay. You can sit back onto your knees and just take a look at where we're going next. We're going to work into the front of the shoulders a little bit here, and there's two options. So I actually did this yesterday when I felt kind of crappy, and it was kind of great. You can take your blocks, if you have blocks, and place them on their lowest setting at the top of your mat. And you want to make them about shoulder width so that the inside corners of these blocks are going to come right into the inside corner of your shoulder. So like right where a tank top would hit, right in that soft spot between your shoulder, outer shoulder, and like right below your collarbone. So you can set yourself up with blocks, or alternatively, if you need something that's a little bit smaller, if you want to get closer to the floor, you can set yourself up with a pair of tennis balls. And you're going to put those tennis balls into that same place right underneath the shoulders. So like right kind of above the armpits and inside the shoulder. So I'm going to actually use the blocks. You pick what's right for you. The blocks actually worked really nicely for me yesterday, and I was really enjoying the sort of opening that I was getting from them. So I'm just going to place those blocks wide enough so that at the top corners of those blocks, my shoulders will land. So I'm going to come around and lower myself down onto those blocks. I take my hands wide, walk my knees back, drop my belly, and then I'm just going to adjust those blocks so that they're underneath in that point. And then I'm just going to let my forehead rest on that mat. If you want, you can get a blanket or a pillow or something and put it under your forehead if that is feeling better. If you have the tennis balls, you're going to be a little bit lower to the ground, which is totally okay, just a different sensation, a little bit less intense. So let your forehead rest. And then from here, you're going to just draw your palms back towards your hips, palms face up. And here, what I'd like you to do is just start to kind of bend the elbows, move the hands up, and then move the hands down. So you're just kind of bending and opening the arms, and then closing the hands towards the hips, like you're doing little tiny snow angels. I'm going to just push this bolster out of the way. And you'll notice that those corners of those blocks are pressing into the front of your pecs, the front of your shoulder. And that could be really talkative. That could be really a lot. And if you find a spot that you want to hang out in, go ahead and just place your palms on the floor and let your shoulders rest down into those blocks or those balls. And take a few breaths. And then from here, if you'd like, you can lift your chin and just gaze over towards the left or right. Let your ear come to the mat. See if you can allow gravity to take hold. I'm looking over towards my right. And then I'm going to come back to center and gaze over towards my left. And let your head rest. I'm keeping my head hovering just because I have a microphone on and it gets all weird when I bang into it. And then you can come back to center and just start to do a little bit of that movement once again. We're reaching back towards the hips, palms face up, and then you're going to just rotate the palms so that they come face down right about shoulder level. So you're just bending the elbows and straightening the elbows. Not gonna lie, this is a thing. This is intense. It feels like a lot. We'll do 2 more of those. And then once you've done those 2, go ahead and take your hands up towards your shoulders. You can lift your chest slightly and slide those blocks out from underneath your shoulders. And just for a moment, stack your hands, let your forehead come to rest, and notice what the front of your shoulders feel like. Notice if you can let your chin kind of sink towards the floor. If you feel like your shoulders are a little bit softer, especially into the front body. If you're using the bolster, I'll show you how to set yourself up for that. So with the bolster, you're just going to lie it long, or the pillow, and you're going to tuck it up behind your pelvis and then just come to lie back on it. And depending upon how sort of thick your bolster or your pillow is, you may need to adjust where your hips are. So in my case, there's too much of a curve in my low back, so I'm going to scooch my hips down, and then I'm just going to come into that same shape. So palms face towards the sky. I'm really letting those shoulders, that space that we were just working in, the front of the pecs, really kind of open. I'm tucking my shoulder blades towards one another. And like I said, the bolster option is a little bit of a softer experience, but it can be just as opening. So choose which option fits best for where you are right now. That's part of the reason that we do a check-in at the beginning of class. It's part of the reason that we just kind of notice what's going on in our bodies so that we know not to push beyond certain limits, not to kind of, go beyond certain limits, but we know what we're feeling. And just start to settle into that heart-opening shape. Take a few breaths. And if you've been hanging out on the blocks and you're starting to get uncomfortable, the best way to come up off of this position, even when you have, well, there's really two ways. When you have a stiff neck or stiff shoulders, probably the best way is to roll off to one side or the other and then press down to sit up. Or if you're feeling a little bit more like, okay, this is feeling pretty good and I'm feeling okay, you can always turn the palms towards the earth, tuck your elbows back underneath your shoulders, engage your core, and start to lift yourself up and off that bolster or off of those blocks. We're going to revisit either those blocks or the balls, whatever feels better. I tend to like the block for this today, so that's what I'm going to use. But you can always use your tennis balls underneath the same space that we're going to get into with the block. So I'll show you how to use the tennis balls first, and then I'll show you how to use the block. So a lot of times the space where our shoulders and our necks meet are incredibly tight. Like this is a place that we all hold a ton of stress. It's where our shoulders come up towards our ears. So you're going to take, first with the tennis balls, you're going to take those balls and you're going to place them just right at that juncture, right where your neck and your shoulders meet. And then you're going to come down, position those tennis balls in that spot. You may have to make a little adjustment, and then let the kind of crown of your head reach back towards the earth. So you can take your hands to your belly here, or you can kind of squinch, which is totally a logical word, but like squinch your shoulders left and right. So those tennis balls kind of move in that juncture. So where the tennis balls are, they're inside of my scapula. They're not on my scapula. They're not on my shoulder blades. They're just inside in that kind of meaty part. And I'm just going to wiggle my shoulders left and right. And this is the nice thing about using tennis balls, is that you can move and there's no sharp edges, right? So I'm pressing into my feet and kind of rocking my pelvis. I'm reaching my hands towards the sky, turning the palms towards the ceiling, interlacing my fingers, and just letting those muscles kind of sink down using gravity. If this feels like it's good, you can keep working this. I mentioned that my jaw has been really, really tight, that it's also related to like the neck stuff that I've got going on. One of the things I've discovered is using tennis balls as a way to release the jaw. So I'm going to come down over to the right side of the mat, and I'm going to come down onto my belly. And once I get down there, I'm going to take one of my tennis balls, and I'm looking to place that tennis ball right on the outside edge of the jaw. So right in that big muscle. It's right in front of your ear. It's right where you can feel that jaw open. And I'm going to take that tennis ball and place it down on the mat. I'm going to make a fist and let my forehead rest on that fist. And then I'm just going to turn my head no. So the ball is sitting underneath my jaw. And I'm still can talk. I'm still like letting gravity do its work, but I'm just kind of giving that side a nice massage. And I'm turning towards my right, so it may look like I'm going to the left. You can pick whichever side feels good, and just see if you can let stuff kind of settle. This may be a lot. This may feel like a lot. If it feels like a lot, you can always use a block or a pillow or something to lift the head a little bit more. But I'm just going to use my hand, make a fist, and kind of work into that jaw space. Just take a few breaths there. Let that masseter muscle kind of release. If you want to move it around a little bit so that it's lower on your jaw, you can do that. But just kind of let it evolve. Let it be whatever you want it to be. Let your body kind of guide you. Then when you're ready, you can go ahead and lift your head and just rotate over to the other side. So same thing, you're going to just place that ball into that big masseter muscle and make a fist. Let your forehead, the temple, rest on that fist. And then just start to kind of move it around. If you want to like shake your head no. If you want to like shake your head yes and see what that feels like. These muscles are often really related also to our scalene muscles, the fronts of our neck. Those muscles get real tight, especially when we're stressed or fearful or angry or anxiety ridden, whatever emotions we're kind of going through. That muscle tends to get real tight. And just take a few breaths there, and just once you've done that, go ahead and release it. I'm coming back to center just for a second. I'm going to stack my hands and let my forehead rest. I'm going to do one other thing on the belly before we roll over to our backs once again. So with that tennis ball, go ahead and place it right on the floor beneath your third eye. And I'm kind of making a little like diamond shape, or like holding the ball, whatever feels good. I'm going to make this diamond shape. And all I'm going to do is just shake my head no. And let that ball kind of press into that spot right in between my eyebrows. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it, but there's a lot of little muscles in the front of the face, all these muscles that we respond with when we're being socially engaged. And sometimes they just get real tight. And if you'd like, you can kind of roll that ball out towards your eyebrows. I'm just kind of shaking my head no. Making that diamond shape with my hands kind of keeps the ball contained so it doesn't roll away, and I can adjust where it is. If the tennis ball is too much, you can always just take a fist and let your forehead rub, because that feels good as well. And then we're just going to come around onto our back. So however you'd like to get there, feel free to roll over to your back. And as we come over to our backs, make sure that you can grab your bolster, and you're going to just slide it underneath your knees. So however you want to get there, feel free to make whatever adjustments you need. And here, just interlace your fingers behind your head and drop your elbows wide. You can make whatever adjustments you need to that pillow or bolster that's underneath your knees. See if you can kind of tuck your shoulder blades down away from your ears. Find a nice long spine. And just for a moment, what I'd like you to do is lift your head using your hands, stretch the chin towards the chest, and maybe just sort of wag the head back and forth, left to right. So again, stretching into the top of the shoulders, base of the neck, and that space where we had the tennis balls earlier, right at the base of the skull and the top of the neck. And if you'd like to just do a little curl, like a little bit of rocking along the back body, I'm not actually engaging my core. I'm actually just kind of stretching the back of my neck. And then take a deep breath in. And on that deep breath, contract and draw your chin more towards your chest, elbows towards your knees. And then exhale and lower your head down. Let your elbows come back to that wide position, and maybe close your eyes and just notice sort of the warmth that comes into the back of the neck, the back of the shoulders. Notice any tingling, any sensation that comes up. And then here, just before we go into a little bit of relaxation, we're just going to do a basic vagal reset. If there's any pain that's come up in your body, just take this moment to kind of acknowledge it and know that it's there, and know that we'll address it in a second. So with a basic vagal reset, what you're going to do is, keeping your nose pointed towards the ceiling, you're going to gaze over towards the right side, all the way over towards the outer edges of your eyes. You're going to hold that gaze until you start to feel a sigh or the urge to swallow. And be patient. It usually takes about 30 seconds to 45 seconds, depending. It's also entirely possible that it doesn't come. Maybe your nervous system is like, I'm cool, this is good. And then gently just bring your gaze back to center, and we're going to go over towards the left side. And here, really try to take those eyes all the way over towards the left side. So the nose is still pointed towards the ceiling, but your gaze is all the way over to the peripheral edge of your eye. You may notice digestion sounds. You may notice that same sensation that you want to sigh, that you want to yawn, swallow. For me, I just took a big sigh. It means everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then go ahead and bring your eyes back to center. And you can take your hands out from underneath your head. You can place them on your body, one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. You can take them out wide if that feels good. I'm feeling a little bit more contained, so I'm going to place my hands on my body. And then I'm just going to close my eyes and start to go inside. And then when you're ready, just slowly begin to deepen your breath. Begin to invite waves of movement back into your system. Wiggle your fingers, your toes, your wrists, your ankles. Maybe take a nice deep breath and a nice long good morning stretch, whatever that looks like. Maybe a yawn. And then slowly roll over to your left or right side. And just pause for a moment in that position. Allow your body to be supported. And give a moment of thanks for just being where you are. Even in pain, there is something to learn. And slowly roll your shoulders more towards the earth and press down to sit up and find an easy seat, whatever shape that may be. And once again, you can just kind of rock on that pillow if you're sitting up on a bolster like I am, just to find that nice long spine. Once you've found that nice long spine, find a little stillness. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let the crown of your head reach towards the sky. What's funny about practices like this is literally a practice that I did yesterday. These are tools that I use in my everyday life to continue to manage stress and manage tension, manage pain. These are all tools that you can respond to, you can return to when you need them. Know that they're always here and they're always available. We have the ability to take care of ourselves and make ourselves feel better. Go ahead and take your hands to heart center. Let your thumbs rest against your sternum. Let your shoulders drop down away from your ears and lift your sternum into your thumbs. Bow your head towards your heart. And just offer up a moment of gratitude, even if your body's in pain, even if you're uncomfortable. A moment of gratitude for being able to come to the mat and use these tools to release some tension. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.